And you see here in 1 Thessalonians, I didn't put the citation on the Greek, I put it only on the English, but it's 1 Thessalonians 4:17. Harpagesometa. Harpagesometa. It's from harpazo.
I thought it was just harpazo.
Yeah. Well, not the way it's actually formed in 1 Thessalonians.
Oh, okay.
It's all this construction up here.
Okay. Wow.
But it is from harpazo, and it means to be gathered up, caught, or taken up.
Mm-hmm. And it's not literal, right? It's not literal. It's an expression of being with the Lord, but on the spiritual level, like, how is it different from parousia, like the presence of God? How is it different from the presence of God?
Well, the presence just means God is hanging around. He's with you. This means that something has grabbed you and taken you. You've been seized.
Oh, it is literal.
I wouldn't necessarily say literal, because your mind could be seized.
Okay.
It's important to note that they're taken up into the clouds, and clouds are often used to represent crowds.
Okay.
So the crowd of people comes to meet the Lord in the air because they thought that heaven was up. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily to be taken literally.
Okay.
You got to make your own meaning out of it, but it does mean to seize or get caught up. Here, it's from ἀ្ρέω, which means to take.
Okay.
The notion of the rapture was believed by very few people before the 1830s, when John Nelson Darby picked this up, and then it got put in the Schofield Reference Bible. The form of the verb is second future passive indicative first person plural. That long construction we looked at on the last slide, that parses as second future passive indicative first person plural. Passive means it's being done to you. It's not through an effort of your own. Indicative means it's stating that this did happen or will happen. First person plural, so it applies to us, we, and it's future. So this will be passively done to us at some time in the future. We'll be caught up, we'll be seized, we'll be convinced. You could even say convinced.
Okay, so, and this is something, the action, who's the noun of this? Is this the Lord is capturing us? Because some would argue that it's the Roman soldiers took people by force. I've heard it all. That some would interpret this verse to get away. I've heard people that are anti-rapture say that this verse is really about what happened in like 70 AD, because people were taken away. Like 2 were in the field and 1 was, oh no, I'm thinking of a different one. 2 were in the field, 1 was taken, 1 was left behind. The people that were taken were actually the ones that were killed or just, taken as prisoner. The ones that were left behind were actually the luckier ones in some perspectives. I don't know what to think about these verses, so I only ask because I'm just curious what you think from the Greek. What are they talking about here on a literal standpoint?
Well, I don't see a clear subject in the sentence. I don't see who's doing the gathering. It says, we who are alive will be gathered, but it doesn't say by who.
That's what I wonder, yeah.
I think one thing that Christians really, 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 really need to learn is how to say, I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
The Jewish people would get together and discuss things, and they wouldn't threaten one another. They wouldn't say, you're going to hell if you don't agree with me. They would discuss things openly.
Right.
Why can't Christians do that? Why can't Christians say, I don't know?
After all, Paul did. He said, I resolved to know nothing but Christ crucified.
Yes, there you go. Wycliffe, he took this word and translated it as rushed. Rushed together with them in the clouds. That's our English word, rushed, right there. Rushed together with them in the clouds. It's from 1395. English didn't look quite the same as it does now, but you get the general gist. We that remain, that have been left, should be rushed together with them in the clouds, meeting Christ in the air, and so evermore we should be with the Lord. Or here in French, ensuite, nous les vivons qui sont restés, nous serons tous ensemble enlevés avec eux sur les nuées, lifted up above the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we will always be with the Lord. Okay. Perichoresis.
I love this.
This is a word that I'm showing the Little and Scott's entry here. That's out of copyright, this version of it. But this is from Little and Scott's dictionary. To go round, to come around, to come in succession, rotate. Right? Perichoresis is a rotation. Perichoreis, to round about a place, the people who are about. The etymological dictionary I'm using here is Valpi because it's out of copyright. Actually, the current reference is Beeks, Beekes. It's a 2-volume set, costs $150 from Amazon. But Valpi is out there for free, and it's pretty close. Beeks usually agrees with Valpi. But Kainos meant to dance in a ring, a round dance, usually accompanied with song. The word choir is connected with this word Kainos. So Kainos is the middle part of perichoresis. Kainos is right in here. Choresis, Kainos. It has to do with circular movement. And there are similar words like corona, koronos, keros, korax.
Now, corona comes from crown, right? Like the crown, your head, crown, something. Corona.
Because it's round.
Round, oh, okay. Yeah.
The notion of being round. So the crown that you wore on the head was round, therefore it was a corona. When the aurora, when you see the aurora, it's the corona of the earth, the crown of the earth.
Round, okay.
But it is a term that has been used to refer to the relationship of the three persons in the triune God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, to one another. First used by the church fathers, Maximus Confessor, notably, he died in the middle of the 7th century. But the related verb perichoreio was found earlier in Gregory of Nazianzus, who was about 200 years before Maximus the Confessor. Gregory used it to describe the relationship between the divine and human natures of Christ, as did John of Damascus in the mid-8th century, who extended it to refer to the interpenetration of the three persons of the Trinity, and it became a technical term later. I'm citing Wikipedia for that.
Yeah. Did you read any of those guys, the Maximus Confessor? I've heard of him. And
I have read some of them.
is there anything, any cliff notes that you can share? Anything that you would recommend?
Well,
writers that would kind of paraphrase it for us, nice and brief.
Not particularly.
Nothing, yeah. I found some good stuff for George MacDonald, but he's much more recent, of course. But St. Athanasius, I read his work, some of his work on the Incarnation. That just blew my mind. It was just so beautiful.
Well, the Athanasian Creed probably has the best articulated statement of the Trinity as most believe it now.
Okay.
The Athanasian Creed is a good source. I think Irenaeus is an interesting read, and Tertullian is an interesting read.
Okay.
There's a Greek book that the Desert Fathers used called the Philokalia, means the love of the good. It's a 3-volume series that is rather important to Orthodox monastics. It's a good read. I recommend people read the Philokalia.
How do you spell that? I'm writing it.
Philokalia, one word.
Oh, I was actually right. It's very phonetically correct. Okay.
This was a icon that was done by Andrei Rublev.
Oh, yeah.
It's often called the Hospitality of Abraham, Troitsa in Russian, the Trinity. And he did this somewhere in the late 1300s or the early 1400s. So it's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And down here, they believe there was a mirror. So if you were standing looking at this thing, you'd see the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and yourself. And what do we have here? We have communion.
Oh.
So I think that's a wonderful icon.
Huh.
Koinonia.
Yay.
Now that means communion, association, partnership, or society. Can also refer to sexual intercourse. It can refer to a gift, a charitable contribution, or alms. It comes from the word koinos, which means common.
Wait, I thought it was koinonia. Koinonia?
Yeah, it comes from koinos, though.
Okay.
Koinonia is the word.
Koinonia.
Koinonia is up here. This is koinonia, and it comes from koinos, down here.
I've always pronounced it koinonia, like when I'm pronouncing the word. Okay, so it's koinonia.
This is an ah, but with the I it becomes oi. That's a long O. Koinonia. This one is koinos. They're both ahs, but this one becomes oi because of the I. Koinos. Koinon. Koinao means to defile or to make common. But the root of this Sometimes they show roots with a dagger. Okay, this particular system is using the dagger. So the root of this is keo. Some variants are kio, also psao, keo, huo. They're all similar. They imply movement. So the words like kio and kineo and sio are to move forward. Keo, to move or drive on, along with kelo. Keomai, kemai, kesko, to move or place oneself down, to lie down. Keo, huo, to be thrown or pour down.
But koinonia is usually communion or like a fellowship, right? It's not usually sexual intercourse, correct?
That's a second meaning. This is the third meaning.
A whole different meaning. Okay.
But it has to do with sharing or being in common, as all of these do.
Okay.
But the key to this is in common. So when we're in koinonia, we are in community. We are in common. We take communion, a community meal together.
Okay.
The bread and the wine, or the bread and the grape juice, after the Welsh company made money off of this because drinking was a sinful thing. The bread and the wine were symbolic, but the whole meal was communion.
Yeah.
And they didn't sit at a table like the famous painting of the Lord's Supper.
Yeah, they're on the floor.
They were recumbent on the floor, and the food was on a table about a foot off the floor. Mm-hmm. They had pillows underneath them, and they were stretched out. That's the way they ate.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And some derive this from sun, meaning together, like in synagogue.
Okay.
To come together, synagogue. Kainos. Now, there's a word that's near and dear. It means new. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it means new, fresh, unused, unworn, recent, newly invented, newfangled, novel, strange, of a new kind, unprecedented, uncommon. There's a similar word, neos, which means young. It's referred to the chronological age of something. Now, in looking at Valpi down here below, I got to see my cursor. There you are. Kainos, new. It's allied to katsomai, to be adorned or decorated with. Kalos, fair or beautiful. It's in the name of the Philokalia, loving the beautiful. And ganos, brightness or splendor. So means shiny or new, shiny new. See, you could take the shine out of something, but if something's new, it has the shine still in it. So we have a new covenant. This new commandment I give unto you, to love one another, makes us into the new man. We drink the new wine, which better be served in new wine skins. Otherwise, you're going to burst the wineskin.
Right.
So the one who was sitting on the throne in Revelation 21, that would be Jesus. He says, look, I am making everything new. That's kainos. There's another word, olam, in Hebrew, and I understand that the ayin character here, it's called an ayin. My professor pronounced that with a glottal stop. So he'd say, olam. I don't know. I'm just telling you what my professor did. I could not really imitate the sound, but he says, just like when the British people say bottle, they'll say bottle.
Oh, yeah, sure.
He says the same thing, a glottal stop.
Okay.
But olam means of long duration or antiquity. It can refer to the days of old or ancient time. Indefinite futurity, that means a future with no end, forever, always, eternal existence, everlasting. It can refer to divine existence because God has been around forever. But it comes from a root, lam, meaning to conceal or to hide. Because whatever's in the distant future, we can't see it. It's hidden from us. See? So that's where they get that from. The Greek equivalent, I suppose, for that is ion. And this refers to one's period of existence or one's lifetime. It could be a generation. It could be a long space of time or an age. It could be a slice of time with a marked beginning and ending. That is what we would call in English an era or an epoch. Homer used this word to refer to the spinal marrow. Anyhow, its origin is from ao, which means to breathe, to blow. It means to sleep only because of referring to snoring. See, that's a breathing motion, right? It's a breathing motion. And it could more distantly mean to be hurt or to be full or satiated. Don't know quite what the connection is there, but it's connected to ae in Greek, which again means perpetually, incessantly, invariably, or always. Valpi's etymological dictionary down here at the bottom right In any case, it's an uninterrupted succession. This is aye they're talking about. It's an uninterrupted succession, meaning always. And Lenup and Dunbar, they derived this from ao, meaning to breathe. So marking time by your breath. Yeah, like we say, time has transpired, time has expired. Those are words referring to breath. Because spiro is to breathe. Inspire, inspiration, respiration. So much time transpired. The time has expired. We are carrying forward this notion of breathing, even in English. Apocalypsis. That means an uncovering or a disclosure, making something known. It's from apocalypto, meaning to uncover or disclose or to make known. The parts of it, you take it apart, we have apo, which means from or of. We would say Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus from Nazareth, Jesus apo Nazareth. And calypto, meaning to hide or to veil or to cover. Related words are klepto, which means to steal, and crypto, which means to hide or conceal, put it in a secret place. The word for that is crypto, a secret place.
Cryptocurrency.
Yeah, cryptocurrency, cryptography, the burial crypt. Well, crypto is related to calypto, a secret place. Here we have kalpe or kalpis, a covering of skin or a bucket or an urn. And this meaning here, a hut, referencing calypto. Ἀποκατάστασις, restoration. This is from apo, in this case meaning off or from. Katastasis meaning a downward or fallen condition. A stasis of being down. Kata meaning down. Stasis meaning a place where you're standing down. So you're no longer in a fallen condition if you have gone through ἀποκατάστασις. Here we have Jesus must stay in heaven until the time comes when all things may be right again, restored or made new. God told about this long ago when he spoke through his holy prophets. Well, here we have ἀποκατάστασις. All things may be made right again. Made right again is ἀποκατάστασις. Restored, made new, made kainos.
So all things, that's part of him coming, like the coming of Christ, right? Like when all things will be made new, like the new earth and everything.
Yes.
When there is peace on earth, he shall come.
And Acts,
to bring calamity.
yeah, I mean, not coming to destroy. He came to save the world, right?
Right.
Acts 3:21 is the only passage in the Bible in which the word translated restitution, ἀποκατάστασις, is found in the New Testament. It's not found in the Septuagint either, which is a Greek translation of the Old Testament, written about 250 BC. Etymologically, it conveys the thought of restoration to an earlier or better state, rather than that of simple consummation or completion, which the immediate context seems in some measure to suggest. There's a parallel in new heavens and new earth involving, as they do, a restoration of all things to their true order. 2 Peter 3:13 does not necessarily involve, as some have thought, the final salvation of all men, but it does express the idea of a state in which righteousness and not sin shall have dominion over a redeemed and newly created world. And that idea suggests a wider hope as to the possibilities of growth in wisdom and holiness, or even changing of the mind, the unseen world, than that with which Christendom has too often been content. This corresponding verb is found in the words, Elias truly shall come first to restore all things. Matthew 17:11. And Peter's words may well be looked at as an echo of that teaching, so an undesignated coincidence testifying to the truth of St. Matthew's record. That's from Ellicott's commentary. There you are. You know, these are some of the words that we had a meeting together. We talked about some words that people would probably like to have explicated, and I went and researched these and put these slides together to help explicate those words.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is great. This is beautiful.
Not necessary.
Like for you to do this.
I believe in sharing this stuff. You know, I may not have a doctorate in this field, but I do have a doctorate, and I do think about these things. It's kind of a hobby that I have, and I love researching these things. So if other words come up that other people would like to have researched, I'd be glad to. I don't want to get doctrinaire here because I'm ready to say I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I believe in what's essential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at Mary and Martha. You know, one of them did what was essential, the other one didn't. Let's stick to what's essential. The good part.
She sat and she rested, you know, and listened, you know, to her agape father.
Indeed.
Pure love. What is pure love saying about the situation? That's what I kind of look at when I read, you know, the book of Revelation or even Daniel or something that's it's a little more dense, a little more heavy, and you can look at it in different frames of mind. But through like the agape love lens, it's always good. It's all good. We don't have to have it all figured out. I do. That being said, I am curious, you know, to like dive in a little deeper with Revelation, maybe at some point with you, and the Satan. You know, what does that mean in the Hebrew? Because I do find that interesting personally. But yeah, I'd love to hear what other people find interesting. Just as you're coming into this like new Kainos belief, right? The newness,
Yeah.
the new fresh gospel. Like, for me, it's still so fresh because for so long I was believing a false narrative, or you know, deep down I knew a lot of the stuff like didn't resonate with me anyways, like literal hellfire and such. But even just the little things that you would hear in church, like the faith aspect, like you know, believe, and what was it, the one if you I don't know what the verse is, but this is the message I heard a lot was believe, be baptized, if you believe hard enough, like I don't know what the verse is, but believe strong enough and hard enough, and then these things will happen. Like God will give you what you want, what you need, not what you want. And for so long I thought, well, I don't feel like I believe enough. I've always been a very, you know, scientific minded person, and I never, you know, for a long time I didn't think I believed enough for God to fully accept me, you know, until I started hearing the message of God's grace, and that it's God's faith, his faith, and Jesus' faith that saves us. You know, in Gethsemane, he said, you know, let it be your will, not mine, be done. And he went through that time, that agony in Gethsemane. We didn't have to. We don't have to. We can just totally rest in him. And I mean, that's just mind blowing.
It is mind blowing. And, you know, you see people who are reluctant to take communion because of that passage that says to examine yourself, to see if you are taking communion worthily. They can't even read in context one chapter, because towards the end of the chapter it says examine yourself. At the beginning of the chapter it says the rich, the privileged, they come in and they make pigs out of themselves, and they eat all this stuff, and they leave the scraps and the crummy parts and the insufficient meals for the poor. So examine yourself how you take communion. It doesn't mean if you're a sinner, don't take communion. Jesus accepted sinners. You know, what about that woman at the well? He didn't condemn her. Or the woman taken in adultery. Why is it always women anyhow? But
what about the guy who
Right. He was probably standing there with a stone, right? But these people don't understand Jesus loved the sinner. The church is a hospital for sinners. It's not a place only for the elect. And Jesus said, do this in remembrance of me. Well, if you don't do that, you're violating that commandment. When you eat bread, when you drink wine, when you drink grape juice, heck, whenever you take a meal, remember him.
Yeah, that's it.
And we don't say grace, he's grace. We just say thank you. I'm so glad that you provided for us.
It's a lot, though. It's a lot to digest. I think, you know, we did good. So
well, I hope it was helpful. And if other people have other words they'd like to have explored, you know, I'm not an expert, but I do have training in this.
Yeah.
I'm more than zero, you know, and unfortunately, both Greek and Hebrew. And I've looked at things like Ugaritic and Old Babylonian. I had a quarter of Old Babylonian.
So have you looked into like the Hebrew letters, like I know people are real into that, just the letters.
There's a great book on those letters.
The living letters I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think it's Wisdom in the Hebrew Alphabet.
Okay.
By Michael L. Munk, M-U-N-K.
Okay.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Excellent book.
Okay.
It talks about the symbolism, the meaning of these letters, their structural design, and what that structural design implies, their numeric value, and what that tells you. It's a book primarily written for Jewish-speaking people who've had training in Hebrew, but I think a lot of it would come through to Protestants who never had any official training in Hebrew.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. A lot of stuff to look into.
Yeah.
And it's fun, you know. It's if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah, I enjoy this stuff, but I just feel so sorry for people who feel that they can't take communion.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're in the Catholic Church, what do they say? If you're not Catholic, you can't do it.
It's forbidden. Well, I got a friend that's been hanging around with the Jehovah Witnesses.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit.
And he said that the one holiday that they celebrate every year is essentially a Remembrance Day. And I guess it's remembrance of the crucifixion. It's done around the time of Resurrection Sunday.
Okay.
And he said that out of maybe 60 people who were present at that Kingdom Hall, three people took communion. What on earth?
Because they just didn't feel worthy, probably.
Yeah. That is so sad. They don't even understand the new covenant. And yet, surprisingly to me, my friend tells me that the Jehovah Witnesses are actually grace people and they're new covenant people. You know, they've got this thing about, you know, how they used to say you can't have a beard and how you had to wear a suit and all that. They've taken those requirements away. But if they're new covenant people, why is it that only 3 of them, they don't understand what Jesus did?
Well, I think a lot of religious sects and denominations don't, you know.
Yeah, you know, it's not my job to criticize them.
Yeah.
I love them like I love everybody else. It says do not judge, and it says love your neighbor. Well, I love them, and I'm not judging them. But I do find it peculiar that that behavior seems to imply that those people don't have a proper understanding of the new covenant, even though the Jehovah Witnesses themselves may officially have a proper understanding of the new covenant. Those individual people do not.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad they can't celebrate, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that note,